Hi everyone, this is Dr. Christine. I'm back here again for the next part. I want to continue on with this story. So Colton is having multiple seizures. He is stuck in sort of this like seizure-like activity that won't let up. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I've prayed for an angel. I've prayed for a sign from God. I'm still trusting God. I'm remembering what he told me. About the things that we're going to have to go through. And I will tell you that at one point in my surrendering to God, because I felt like if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do what I believe God wants us all to do, wants me to do in this moment. I'm not going to speak for anyone else, but I know that that's what God desires for all of us. But anyways, this is my story, and everybody's got, their own journey with God. So anyways, I'm prior to this whole event, I went through that, the fasting. And so during that time, I had a lot of faith. My faith was very, very strong. And that just seems to be what fasting does for us. It really helps us to draw near to God. It gives us, we really can only focus on God because we're hungry, our bodies are uncomfortable, we're, going through that, denying ourselves in that way. And so, the instruction is to seek God with all your heart during that time, which I did. And then I surrendered everything to God. I said, God, I trust you. I really felt in my spirit that God was saying, just trust me with this. Just trust me. Trust me. And I said, okay, God, I'm going to surrender. I trust you. I trust that whatever happens, you're going to get us through it. And I trust that you want the best for me, that you want the best for Colton, and that you want healing for Colton. I trust this. So in this moment, back at the hospital in the ICU, I am hanging on to that interaction that I had with God, because it was so intense of an interaction, as well as I felt so bonded to God. And I felt like that my faith had grown so much. The Holy Spirit lives inside of us. And so Holy Spirit was speaking to me and giving me faith, because that's what the Bible talks about is, if you want more faith, ask for it. And God will give you more faith. So 2 o'clock in the morning. So we're still waiting. We're waiting. Nothing changes. Not a thing changes. Every time I touch Colton, he looks like he's going to throw up. He is now clenched. Everything is still looking terrible. It looks terrible. It looks like there's no hope in sight. Okay. And we just wait it out. We're waiting till the morning. We're waiting for the doctors to come in the morning. So that's what we're hearing the nurses say, and the on-call doctor is saying. She comes in. She looks extremely distraught. And that's never a good sign when your doctor is looking extremely distraught, more distraught than you are. I mean, we were pretty distraught, but she was looking like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed. And then so she was telling me, I spoke to the doctor in charge, and she's seen this before. I'm like, okay, great. When is she going to come by? So in the morning, so it is now somewhere in the morning, and I got a little bit of shut eye. I mean, maybe like 30 minutes or something like that. I accidentally fell asleep. I don't know how that happened. I guess I was just so exhausted from 3 nights of not sleeping. And they come in and they start telling us, so they're doing their evaluations. There's a team of doctors that come in, they do their evaluation, and they tell us that this is what we do next. We basically, in order to stop this seizuring activity and behaviors, and his breathing is still labored, so he's making these like weird noises, loud weird noises, like his breathing is like raspy, rough, labored, all of that, and we don't know why. So that was kind of the worst part, is just not ever really knowing why any of these things were happening. What is that about? Why is he doing that? Well, we don't know. We don't know why he's doing that. So anyways, they come in and they're doing their thing, and they give us the news. This is what we're going to have to do, to wait for all of this medication to kick in, because apparently there's medication that will help that cytokine release syndrome. So they have to keep him on that medication. So how long? Apparently days. And then he has to stay on the steroids to keep his temperature and his blood pressure regulated. So they're saying, so this is what needs to happen. He is going to have to be under sedation for as long as it takes for this CRS to subside, where he can have control over his body again. And apparently, you know, some good news is that typically people will be, you know, there's a chance that, you know, his brain is fine, right? But there's also a chance it's not, because they're going to bring in all of their equipment for, like, they you know, an MRI, CT, everything. They put electrodes on his head. They're monitoring his brain activity. They, you know, the room just is now filled with equipment, filled with doctors and nurses, and they essentially are trying to save him at this point. So he has to go on he has to be intubated. So he has to go on a ventilator. He can't even breathe for himself now. I mean, they're going to put him under, so he won't be able to breathe for himself. And that will be better for him, because his breathing is so labored at this point that it's dangerous for him. He's not getting enough oxygen, and that could certainly result in some brain damage, or, you know, damage him in some way. So we have to make this decision. And my husband, thankfully, felt, you know, I mean, he's pretty conservative, extremely conservative when it comes to any kind of unnecessary medical interventions or treatments. But I think he just felt in his spirit that this is what we have to do. We have to stop this seizure-like activity. We have to. And we have to because he's not getting enough oxygen now. His breathing is not getting him enough oxygen. So they go through all of this stuff and they put him under. So now he's in mild sedation. We leave the room. They have to do all of this stuff. They bring in the doctor, the surgeon that does this procedure. They have to monitor him. There's going to be a machine breathing for him. He's breathing a little bit on his own too, but the machine is mainly doing a lot of the breathing. So we go and we meet with some doctors, not even the main one. I don't know, we don't know where she is at this point. She is giving her input from somewhere, but she's not the one that's there. So some other doctor is there and giving us kind of the rundown of what's going to happen. Now, so he may be under for a few days, is what they're saying. And he's also, they're going to see, you know, if there's any brain damage. So we don't know any of these things right now. I am just trusting God, because I felt like God was telling me he is going to be returned to you the same way you surrendered him to me. That's what I felt God was saying. God is a good God. Why he, you know, chose to do this, or why he chose to give us this testimony, I think we kind of know now, but we certainly didn't know then why we were having to go through this, all of this stuff. So So here's where I'm going to start talking about how God came through for us. There are some miracles here that, I mean, God is real and he's amazing. So after this meeting, I get on the phone, or we may be waiting for Colton to get sedated and for them to do all their procedures. We're not allowed to be in the room during that time because there's not enough room in there for everybody because he's still in the ICU and it's a small room. So I get a call from my friend, or I get text mess. I can't remember if it's text messages or a call, but she informs me of this thing that happened to her. She didn't know the time frame of anything. She didn't know that I looked up at 2:00 in the morning at the clock and I was begging God for an angel. So she proceeds to tell me that she woke up in the middle of the night. And she's just spontaneously told me, like, maybe around, because I asked her, what time? Do you think maybe around 2 or something like that? And she felt like there was an earthquake. So she was waking up her husband, waking up her kids, telling them there's an earthquake, we need to get out of here, all of that. Like, it was that big of an experience for her. And so when her husband said, go back to bed, there's no earthquake, you're dreaming, you know. So she was like, okay, what's going on? And then she started to pray. She felt like she had an urge to pray for Colton at that time. So she starts praying, and she heard the Lord say to her, Colton is going to be okay in 2 weeks. He's going to be okay. He's going to recover. He's going to be okay. So she tells me this, and I am like in shock. I'm in shock. I'm in shock anyways, but this is even more shocking in a good way, because she tells me Colton is going to be okay, and that God woke her up in the middle of the night at the same time that I prayed that God would show me an angel. And that's what kept me going at that time. So we met with the people. They told us a bunch of things like, okay, you know, and they don't look super confident about it because there haven't been that many cases that they've had of the CAR-T there at that hospital. And so maybe 20 cases. I think they said something like 20 cases, and some of them were just mild CRS symptoms. So they haven't had much to go on. And so they're not very confidently, but telling us that this is what's going to happen. He should be able to recover. This is CRS. And then we later find out, after all the MRIs and everything, that his brain is fine, and that this is, you know, whatever seizures had occurred were acute and not something, it was just a result of those other symptoms that were going on with him, and not something that's gonna result in like an ongoing seizure disorder. That was their guess. So everything is a guess at this point. You know, they take their best guess. They're human. We trust doctors in a lot of things, but they're only human. They're just like us with a lot of education in their area of expertise. But have they seen everything? Do they know everything? Are they God? Absolutely not. And they know they're not God. So when we rely on them, you know, we know that we're not relying on someone that knows everything. They're not going to know everything. So we have to go back. Well, I feel like I have to go back to God and get confirmation of things, and sit in my what would be called like the secret place with God. So the secret place is where you just sit down and you ask God to speak to you. You are praying to him. You are listening to worship music, because worship music seems to usher in the spirit realm. So you're trying to get into the spirit realm, because there's two realms. There's the, what we see in front of us, and then there's this spirit realm that nobody can see until you ask God to, to enter in to that realm where God lives and God resides there. And that secret place is where you can meet with God. And if you're quiet enough and you're surrendered and you've forgiven everybody you need to forgive, and you're confessing your wrongdoings to God, then you're at that place where you can actually be clear enough in the spirit to perhaps hear from him. Like in his voices, it comes through. The more you spend time with him, the clearer his voice can be. But initially it might be just like a tiny little whisper, and just a little bit at a time. And then the more time that you spend with him, you can hear him a little bit more clearly. So anyways, so we go into this, and it's, it's hard. It's really tough. I go in, he's on a ventilator now. And it's like, how did we get here? How did we get here? And I'm a wreck. And then we have our parent liaison. She was there to greet us right in the beginning when we were admitted, or when we got to the second floor where he was going to reside there for a while for his chemo. She has always been very supportive. And so she comes by, and she looks horrified by, she's trying, I could tell she's trying to be very positive, but nobody is liking what they see at this point. And the doctors are trying to stay positive. They're trying to tell us, no, this is, typically they do get over this, he should be able to recover, but nothing's for sure. So anyways, he's on this, and he has to be fed through a tube. We have to give him Ensure or Pediasure through a tube. And his movements are still doing this weird thing. Like his body is still in this like automatic response to whatever it was, his brain swelling. So the medication, as the hours go by, is reducing the swelling. So hopefully these movements can begin to calm down. And he's still not responsive. So the nurse, so he's on a ventilator, he's sedated, but he's not really, he's not fully sedated. So they say that if he has any kind of control over his body movements, that he would be able to maybe grip your hand a little bit. He wasn't gripping anybody's hand. It was like, it seemed like it was going to be a while. So they were saying it should be a few days. And so we're basically holding our breath, holding out for when he's going to be able to do that. Every time they do it and he doesn't grip their hand, we're like, it's devastation every single time. The nurses come in, they're talking to him. He can't say anything back. He's sedated. He's not responsive at all. His eyes are open, but he's just looking straight ahead and not looking at anyone. So we're going, Colton, and he can't look. He has no control over these movements. We don't know if he's in there or what, but I felt like he was. I was trusting God. I was saying, God, I'm going to trust you. I have no other choice. I heard you, God. You said my son was going to be all right, and he's going to be okay in 2 weeks. So after all that, the main doctor comes in. He's looking at Colton. He's been following. So there's been the female doctor and the male doctor, and he's one that has always, I think he always kind of liked Colton, because Colton's really funny and he's just really smart and witty and all that stuff. So he kind of got a bit of Colton's personality, and so he was pretty upset walking in, of course, and looking at Colton, trying to stay, in his doctor mode, letting us know, yeah, he looks like he's moving along really nicely. So we're just waiting. That medication takes a while to kick in. It takes days to kick in. So So I'm going to stop this here, but in the next video is we're going to start talking about what happens, how God has come through for us. I hope you'll check out the next video. Also, if you don't mind clicking the like button on there, that would be great. It just helps for the video to get out there to whomever might, I don't know, whomever might want to hear this video and be impacted by it. Okay, so if you want to do that, that'd be awesome. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.